As a 17-year-old, a senior in high school, just entering the climate fight myself, I think it's really easy to feel polarized. And I'm sure many of the women on this lineup have had that experience. But I think the question is why? Like, why do I feel like I don't belong in this conversation just because I'm young? And I think that really speaks to the theme of this panel, the power of resilience, of taking up space that maybe wasn't originally meant for us, and telling our stories, entering these spaces with power and volume and passion. And so I think today I want to tell my STEM, STEAM, climate justice story and a couple of the moments along the way that have brought me here. So as a 17-year-old in high school, I, alongside my peers, have spent most of our young life with a climate crisis clock above our heads. And I think the idea of climate change anxiety is super real for young people, especially in my generation as a member of Gen Z. And it's something that you have to learn to live with. And the only way that it doesn't eat you alive is if you use it to light your fire and light your passion. With that in mind, the first time that I attended a climate protest was freshman year. I was 14, and I left class early to attend with my friends. We took the metro down to downtown LA, and we walked, we chanted, and we stood hand in hand with powerful women who were all here rallying to make our world livable, affordable, and greener for all. And I think something that stood out about that moment, especially to me, was the fact that we did have to leave school early. And a conversation my friends and I were having when we were on the train heading to downtown LA was the fact that we are leaving our education. We're sacrificing the classes we're missing because a lot of the adult lawmakers who have been in office for more time than I have been on this earth have failed to act. And in that moment, when I was chanting, especially with my friend Maddie, she really wanted to lead a chant. She called out, we are what democracy looks like. And to my surprise, voices echoed throughout the entire street in Pershing Square in downtown LA, we are what democracy looks like. And I think in that moment, I felt the passion, the frustration, the anger, and more importantly, the urgency in the air. And I knew that this was a fight that I wanted to be a part of. That leads me to my next point about intergenerational organizing. As a young person, talking with those who have different identities, different backgrounds, and most importantly, span across all ages is the key to solving the climate crisis. I remember I was canvassing in my neighborhood for Sunrise Movement, which is an amazing climate organization, and a local climate organization in my hometown of Pacific Palisades called Resilient Palisades. And we were going door to door, and I was talking with people double, triple, and even quadruple my age. And I think that just goes to show that no matter, again, like I said, your identity and your background and the jobs you pursue and what you're passionate about, a common theme that bridges us together is solving the climate crisis. Because we can't win this fight alone, and it's essential for all of us to get involved. And I think that led me to trying to acknowledge and appreciate the power of youth voices. So, like I mentioned, this is not something that I should be having to fight for or should be having to deal with, but the fact is that I am. And we're all here, and all the women on this panel are here fighting the climate crisis and trying to use our voices for good. And I grew up in an intergenerational household with strong and resilient women who taught me that my most important power is my voice. And waking up and using my voice for change every day. And calling out my opinions, my perspectives, and my passions from the rooftops. And it's frustrating, like I mentioned, to see all these prominent lawmakers fail to act. I've been to DC, and I, alongside my friends, have protested on Capitol Hill. We have waited outside Senate office buildings. And again, I think maybe even more important aspect of that is getting into our neighborhood. And this led me to how I met the wonderful moderator, Elena, with a program, a youth group called Gen Z for Darling. And I realized that thinking about the climate crisis on a global scale was exhausting and frankly, really, really scary. And burnout and activist burnout, climate burnout is super real when you're constantly surrounding yourself with all this negative information from the media, from your friends, and from the people around you. So I started to get more involved with local politics. and with the help of the wonderful Elena, like I mentioned. And we began mobilizing a campaign to elect a candidate for city council that we believed would help tackle the climate crisis on a local scale. And a key part of understanding the climate crisis and solving it is addressing it in our own backyard. And getting involved with the local city council and local initiatives is key. And it's also thinking about the ways as I grow up and I will soon enter adulthood, not too soon, but pretty soon, thinking about the intersections of so many other things and the climate crisis, transportation and housing, even transportation alone making up 41% of our state's greenhouse gas emissions. And how that happens is we have low density, single use zoning heavily seen in LA. And that is something that we can address and we can solve on a local and state level. So as an adult, or when I become an adult, these are issues that I want to mobilize around, and I think the work I'm doing now on a local scale will help me eventually get there. And it is so inspiring to be a part of a local grassroots green effort in my own community and going door to door and having dialogue with my neighbors, my friends, my teachers, understanding that thinking about the climate crisis on a global scale, however important that may be, it's also equally important to talk about, like I mentioned, the climate crisis in our own backyard. And finally, I just want to acknowledge that how much reading and immersing myself in other opinions have helped grip me in the resources that I need to fight the climate crisis. And more specifically, I just wanted to give a shout out to this book because I think reading authors outside your own community gives you an incredibly crucial perspective. So this is called The Intersectional Environmentalist by Leah Thomas, and acknowledging the knowledge that Black, Indigenous, and other POC women have bestowed on us, often without credit, is incredibly important when we move forward in conversations about STEM and STEAM and tackling the climate crisis